Hey everybody, sit down around the hearth, grab a frosty mug of ale. Welcome to the Lion's Pride Tavern, where we discuss all things Azeroth. Hey everybody, welcome to the Lion's Pride Tavern podcast number 32. Tonight we talk about our awesome raid run, and we have 7.2 questions tonight. Plus, we have another very, very special guest tonight. But before all that, let's start off with introductions. I'm your host, Fafford. I play a Dwarven Beastmaster Hunter in the awesome game World of Warcraft. Next up, we have Joe Bowie.
Hi, I'm Joe Bowie. I play a Worgen Fire Mage.
And Lorelei.
Good evening, it's Lorelei, your Night Elf Fury Warrior.
And Epistle up north where it's not so cold.
Finally, yes, Epistle. I play Adrenai, Protection Paladin.
I don't know why I always give the weather report when I get to you.
I don't know, it just seems, the Northerly report.
Yeah. Tappuccino has other plans for tonight, so we won't get our healing druid perspective. But we have a very special guest, like I mentioned before, Arkanshadow.
I am a Night Elf, Havoc Demon Hunter.
So, Arkanshadow, how long have you played WoW, and since what expansion?
I've played since right around the beginning of Lich King, and I've played ever since, minus I played Warlords of Draenor for about 15 seconds and said no. And then I played a little bit into Pandaria, but I couldn't get into Mr. Pandaria. The pandas just threw me off.
See, and I was actually looking forward to him because I'm a big martial arts fan, but it didn't work out that way.
Yeah, to each their own. I'm not. It just wasn't my cup of tea, and I don't ever blame anybody for not wanting to play through any expansions.
Yeah, very cool. And this is my favorite question for you tonight. How did you find this raid group?
I actually was just looking for a reason to get back into WoW, and I was looking through podcasts, and this one came up, and it was right whenever y'all first started pushing episodes out, and I started listening to y'all, and it just took me back to the way that I used to be in a raid group with it was actually Guild of Elites. Nobody ever knows it on Misha server, but we had a very close relationship, and it was a very personal experience, having all your friends and people you never met playing, and that's what kind of drew me into the way I could just tell with y'all's chemistry and the way y'all talked with each other and stuff, that's how y'all were, and it just made me want to be a part of that.
Yep, we actually we did a little spiel on you a couple episodes back, where you were and the reason I keep calling you the very special guest is because you're the first fan of our podcast. Because you got to understand, we never expected this podcast to take off. We expected it to be like, oh, if our players in our raid group listen to us, we'll be happy. And right now we're over the 2,000 mark on podcast listeners. And you were the first one to contact me and say, hey, could I join your group? I mean, everybody had questions, but
Well, yeah, and I would have joined the group sooner, but I wasn't. I couldn't figure it out. And as soon as you got Facebook going, I was like, "Oh, there you go."
yeah, I'm not very good at putting our information in every podcast. I figure if somebody's going to get a hold of us, I mean, with Podomatic.com, we have a link there that you can email us or whatever. And Facebook was an idea of one of our raid members. She's like, we should have a Facebook page. And I'm like, Yeah. And she goes, that way I can post my pictures, because that was Donna Bell, of all the pictures she draws for us. So, yeah. Well, welcome. We're happy to have you. Now, you've been with us, what, 3 weeks now?
Yeah, somewhere around there, give or take.
Yeah. Yeah. And what do you think? Was it worth getting back into and joining our group?
Oh yeah, I mean, it really, the people that you surround yourself with in this game, for me anyway, is what made me want to better myself. And just being around y'all guys, I just I want to get on. I can't get on very much, but whenever I do get on, I'm pushing hard to better myself for the group and for the people that I play with, and it makes all the difference to me anyway on why you play.
It's always important to enjoy, the guild you're in or the group you run with, because I've noticed through, in my years, and I've been in several guilds, that uh, if you really think of your guild as a group of friends that you like or people that you enjoy being with, then you get a whole lot more out of it rather than just a group of people who are trying to get a tier gear or something else. Those guilds aren't usually fun to be in.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that absolutely. It's kind of interesting for me because I'm in kind of a random social guild on my server, and like I would switch over and join you guys, but I have I have 12 tunes on this server, and I like being able to interact, send stuff back and forth with them all the time. And so, like, switching 12 tunes is very cost prohibitive, so I don't think I'm going to be doing that. But it is nice to have, like, I find that it's kind of funny that I I don't really talk that much with my guild, but I talk with members of the raid group a lot, and WoW, they're kind of like my WoW family.
Well, that's where I was going with it, and maybe Pistol can expand on it. I actually think it is kind of a family, and I get it what Lorelai's saying. That you get into some of those groups that are pushing content, and well, we're always going to be the best and the first one to do this, that, and the other thing. I'm not that player, so I don't get enjoyment out of that. And I was in one of those. I think everybody's been in that one group, and it's not fun. I mean, I pay $15 a month for this game, not to be stressed out. I got work for that.
Yeah.
I,
Mhm.
you know. Um, what do you think, Epistle? It's more family, don't you think?
Well, this would probably be the first group that I felt comfortable with, in a long while, inviting my own boys to come and join the raid. I had an interesting situation a few weeks back where Bronzebeard wanted to invite me to one of the alternate raids that he goes on and maybe bring my healer along. But I, listened in on the conversation and how they were doing things and thought, well, I think I'd probably end up just getting angry for an hour listening to everyone being grumpy with each other, and I would just not enjoy it. So, to me, at the end of the day, or at the end of the evening, if it's a raid, I'd rather have felt like there's been the real world connection with real people, even though it's through a digital medium, and that I really feel like I've connected with people and done something together, as opposed to just having you know beat up on a boss in a game with marginal connections or frustrated connections with people. Just it wouldn't be enjoyable.
Do you think it's the difference in maybe age or competition level?
There may be a level of that. I think it's more outlook. I think when we talk about um, how we want to work together, it's that we want to be enjoying each other's company, creating a positive environment, and having a sense that we're going to get better at this and work better with each other over time. And that just makes it a really enjoyable experience, as opposed to we must make this goal at all costs. So I think it's just the outlook of the people who are in the group that make the difference.
Well, I suppose, Epistle, it could have been a, maybe a Canadian influence versus an American influence.
Ooh, getting into culture wars now, are we?
Well, I've always found, and it might be just totally stereotyping, but Canadian people are so nice. I mean, they are. I've never met a infuriated one, but I can walk 15 steps down the street here and find 3 in America.
Yeah.
Mhm,
Well,
very
it's
true.
On
also
the phone
probably.
somewhere.
Would you say though, there's also regional differences? So within Canada, within the U.S., you go to different regions and you'll get different kinds of people with different mindsets. So I mean, I was recently in Hawaii. Everyone there seemed incredibly laid back, as opposed to anywhere else I'd been in the States.
Well, I think Hawaii's the exception
Yeah,
because,
probably.
they do call it paradise. Kind of hard to wake up in the morning in Hawaii and go, I'm angry today. Look at that sunset or that sunrise.
Yeah, it is. Well, at least from the videos and pictures I've seen of Hawaii, because I haven't had a chance to be there yet, but it does seem like a very nice place to be.
Yeah. Well, it was really funny because I was just watching a documentary on the homeless problem that people have in Hawaii. And I'm like, oh, I think I could be
Yeah.
homeless in Hawaii.
It was very noticeable for us, and that's after they'd spent some time trying to work on some of the other problems that they had there. But don't you think, though, large urban centers, is this a fair generalization? If you get large cities, lots of people together, the intensity increases and the competition seems to be just almost tangible. Whereas you get a more country slash mountain slash open spaces, and the mindset of people is a little bit different.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think another interesting thing, I'm just thinking of the Hawaii thing is like I would imagine that there are plenty of people who thought, oh, it'd be really cool to move to Hawaii, and they move to Hawaii, and then they just fall down on their luck. And then how do you get away from Hawaii at that point? It's not like you can just like hitchhike away from Hawaii.
Walk away.
Yeah, there's not really anywhere to go other than Hawaii when you're in Hawaii.
You're not gonna paddle yourself away.
Yeah.
No, you can't like build a raft and sail to America or something, like or the States, like the mainland. It's just not happening.
Several people I met there actually had moved after going there for a vacation. So they went for a vacation and then never left.
Wow.
And I've heard that. So I have a really good friend of mine. He's an electrician, and his dad was the state electrical inspector. And his dad went to Hawaii for a vacation, and just like, I'm retiring there. And he just started saving up, and he built his little hacienda, or whatever you want to call it, there on the island. He's actually on Oahu, but got a little place there, and it's just big enough for him because he's a single dad, and his son stayed here in Montana, and his dad's he's in Hawaii. So every time his dad says, "Hey, you want to come out?" He's like, let me think. Sure.
Right.
Not a tough decision, eh?
No. So I've only been there once. When I was on board ship, we pulled in there, and it was I think it was close to June. So it was the only thing I noticed that it was really hot. But just like anywhere, and I've learned, you get climatized to the area you're in. When I was down in Florida, it's very humid, and it took me about 2 weeks before I got used to that. And then it was like normal. And then I come up here to Montana. It's like, man, it's really bad up here. And then it's back to normal again in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. I'm actually from Florida. I don't like Florida. It's too hot and humid there.
Yeah, I've been there once,
Oh.
and that was, yeah.
I was born there, and I've lived there on and off over the years a couple of times, and nope. I have. I would love to take my kids to Disneyland in Florida. That would be cool, but I don't want to live in Florida at all.
It's
Yeah.
kind of funny.
It's good for
Reminds me.
visiting.
Yeah. My last guild that was, I think, relatively successful about 5 years ago, we had, and I don't know how this worked, but we had a couple people from Florida, 3 from California, and 2 from Alaska, 1 here in Edmonton, and a couple from Toronto.
Wow. That's a very North American diversified group.
It was all over.
So, Ark and Shadow, we're going to ask you a couple of personal questions now. What's your favorite mount, pet, or toy box item, and why?
I'm gonna have to go with the Blood-Bathed Frostbrood Vanquisher, just because how hard I worked to get the Lich King down, and that whole raid was a very serious time for me, and I felt very rewarded whenever I got the Blood-Bathed Frostbrood Vanquisher, and then pet is gonna be Bone Shard, just because he just flies around and he's just screaming Bone Storm. I just love it, and then I like the Puntable Marmot just because I kick him at every boss.
So now I know we haven't probably done it since you've been raiding with us, but did you know that we're not superstitious per se, but we always do our Care Bear stare. I know you've seen the rainbows go out. The other thing
Yes.
we used to do was the Puntable Marmot. We tried to kick him over the boss. So it is something that we have done in the past. It just the Care Bear stare kind of took over because it was more
Well, yeah.
cutesy, I guess. You know.
It looks, I mean, and aesthetically, it's more eye appealing.
Yeah.
I still
So
kick my marmot.
he does. Every once in a while you hear this boom.
Yep.
And we're like, oh, Joe Bowie's kicking his marmot. So, is there a story behind your name?
Not particularly on this character. I was like, all right, I'm back in Legion, and I want to play Demon Hunter because they look awesome, and I kind of was just thinking of something kind of dark and demonish, but couldn't really figure anything out. And then my wife was like, Arcan Shadow. And so I went with it, and it just kind of stuck. I think that there was she actually, like, it's a Greek word that means ruler, Archon, and then shadow is kind of just the darkness. So, so a dark ruler, I guess you could break it down to.
Sure, yeah. Well, we've always asked Tappuccino how she got her name, and we didn't have to even wait for the answer. So, and she's not here to defend herself.
That's true.
So we can make fun of her all night long. Yeah, that was Mommy. She's always keeping me in line.
Or trying her level best.
Yeah, we don't have 2 kids in this house. We have 3 and then 1 adult. All right, so I think we had a little technical difficulty and Arkan Shadow dropped on us. So we will bring him back in at another date and finish our questions off for him and get him into full podcast. So let's just continue on with what we're doing here. All right, so on to information on how to find us. Obviously, you're listening to the podcast, so you found it in one of a few ways. One, you went to Podomatic.com, lionspridetavern.podomatic.com, or 2, you found us on YouTube or iTunes or Google Play. But you may not know we have a Facebook page now, facebook.com/Lions Pride Tavern. Please go there, see our pictures. We post our live streams there. Yes, we are live streaming our raids now, so you can actually see what we're talking about. That doesn't mean you don't want to stop listening. You got to keep listening. Because we don't cover everything that's in our raid. So go there and watch it, and then come and listen to us, and we'll talk about it. So this is our 32nd episode. We publish one a week. We're doing great. We have a brand new viewer from Malaysia. That I thought was pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah. So welcome everybody to our podcast, and thanks for listening around the world. We definitely have a lot of varied listeners from all over the world, and that's fantastic. I think that's what these kind of things really bring people together. So let's talk about our raid. How did we do this weekend? I unfortunately was not there for the Saturday raid. I had other commitments, but Friday I was there. Joe Bowie, lead us off.
Well, Friday night, we changed it up a little bit this week, and we started off on Trilliax, skipping Scorpirion and Chromatic Anomaly on normal. And we took it off the sheet. It was really, really solid. We went through all of the bosses, all the way through Gul'dan, finished off Gul'dan just before raid time was ending, and everybody did a solid job. It was awesome. It was great to see. It was exactly what I was hoping to see too, so that we could move on to Saturday, where we started off fresh on heroic, and on Saturday, we downed Scorpirion and Chromatic Anomaly with one pull each. And then we moved on to Trilliax, where we, stumbled a little bit in getting used to some of the changes in the mechanics, made some adjustments here and there, and then managed to get Trilliax down before time was up. So we got the first three bosses down on our first night of working strictly on heroic, which was awesome.
Wow, man, I'm really sad I missed that now. Jeez.
Yeah,
So,
it was really
how?
cool.
What was the stumble that we came across? Was it anything specific, or?
It was the cakes and people not running into the beam. At first, it was we had to, the cakes come up, and heroic, you can only eat one cake, and then you have like a minute before you can eat another cake, and it also causes you to slow down. And we're trying, to kind of assign groups to go and eat the cake, but that wasn't really working out. And like Lorelai had suggested that we just have everybody pay attention to the cakes and go after the cakes when they're up. And I mean, if you can eat a cake, go eat a cake, but if you can't, then you can't. And we switched that up, and that helped quite a bit. And the other thing was the beam. People were accidentally running in front of the boss as the beam was charging up, or they were bumping into the boss, and the beam kind of goes through the boss, and it would kill them that way, or they would run into the beam when it was switching directions. And we made a little adjustment there where we just had everybody back away from the boss a little bit, so that they were like running alongside the side of the boss, but about 8 to 10 yards away from the boss, so they've got a little bit of play there between themselves and the boss, so that if he switches directions, they had more time to react, because there was a little bit of extra space there, and they weren't about to get hit by the beam that's coming from the other way, if he switched directions. And that seemed to clean up a lot of the problems we were having with the beam. And then I think that we only had one or two people dead when we finished the boss on that one. It was we had gotten it down to about 3% before we got him down in our final attempt there.
Okay. So you did 3 attempts on it?
Well, I don't know. I think we did more than 3.
Yeah, it might have been more.
Yeah, I think we did. I think we did about like 4 or 5 attempts. I think, because there was a couple of attempts where we just had a lot of people die, and so we're like, all right, let's just wipe this up, because we've all seen this fight. It's just a matter of us, getting used to the mechanics and executing everything, and we're not going to get it down this time. So let's wipe it up and start again. And then, we made a few adjustments, and then, but I think it was about 5 pulls before we got him down.
Okay. All right, cool. And then the Scorpion was 1 pull, and the next one was how many pulls?
1.
Yeah,
They were the
one.
first
Oh,
two were
nice.
just 1 pull on each.
Wow.
We actually used the cheese mechanic on Chromatic Anomaly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, the strategy there that we decided to use, is just we would do the cheese mechanic and see how far we could go with it, and just kind of keep an eye on people's health, and when it starts hurting too bad, we'll just stop the cheese mechanic and then go do the regular mechanics, because everybody knew those. And we got the boss, I would say, to about maybe 70, maybe about almost down to 30% of his health before we had to stop the cheese mechanic. And then we just did regular mechanic on that after that and finished him off. It was pretty clean.
Wow. Very cool. Um, so going back to Trilliax then, Lorelei, um, did you with your suggestion, was that something that you do in your raid group, or was it just something you saw?
We do it with our raid group, and I think that what was happening was that people were just getting a little confused because things seem to happen a lot faster on the heroic version, and the, we just needed more people to pick up the cake and get it out of the way of the little bots. And once we did that, I mean, it worked fine. It's just, getting everybody to buy into the mechanics. There were quite a few who could have been getting cakes that weren't, and I think that's going to affect us later with other bosses if mechanics aren't being followed the way they should be, because from Trilliax on, it really is about doing everything you're supposed to do, because those bosses aren't, they're not going to go easy on you at all. It's going to get much, much harder.
Okay. Epistle, from a tanking aspect, was there anything that you guys found different with the heroic?
Not a lot different, but a couple things we really had to be on top of. For example, the beam, we've been a little sloppy because we could be. So if we got hit, it would do a little bit of damage. We either got it mitigated or healed through, and it didn't make that much of a difference. But this time around, it would pretty much kill you almost instantly. So we had to make a few adjustments, like which way we were going to go, because it makes no sense for us to go separate ways. There's a beam that cross connects us that does damage, and so we really have to be on the same side of the boss to make it work. I think the fact that the beam rotates in more than one direction, and it will sometimes switch midway, makes it a little interesting, but it's not that much more challenging for us. So that wasn't too terribly difficult. But I think Lorelei's point is a really good one. There's sort of a baseline number of mechanics that we had to learn to do the fight on normal, and now we've got just a few more points we have to learn to really be able to get it down now, and really being meticulous about the mechanics.
Yeah, it was that was a good point you brought up about the arcing bonds, because there were a lot of people that had it that weren't moving, and from the melee point of view, it's hard for melee to run out. I mean, if we're going to DPS, we need to DPS, so people need to move in. But a lot of times, people that were the ranged or healers were just sort of standing off to the side and not moving in a little closer, and that made it hard when he jumped into the middle. Then a lot of times, as you said, people were on the opposite sides, and then that beam really kills you.
So is that beam, now I know in normal, that Durag and I were actually talking about this, how in normal, there's actually a two-phase question here. Normal, I think a lot of times there's just a group of part of the raid that takes care of what I call the external or extra mechanics, like going and picking up the cake. And everybody else that doesn't do that, I think they just think all to raiding is just hitting the buttons in the right order to get the most DPS, and that's all they have to do. When you start going into the more advanced dungeons, or higher levels in heroics and mythics and so on, that there needs to be more of those people, or everybody has to be a participant. Do you guys find that true or not, Joe Bowie?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's players who, they don't necessarily go after the mechanics that are needing to be picked up, like you said, like the external mechanics, like the cake and stuff like that. Um, and they, but heroics is just unforgiving, and it requires everybody to do some of that stuff. And if they don't, then it's probably not going to work out. And there's some bosses in here where there's just no room for people to just focus on DPSing, because everybody's going to have to be totally on their toes to pull it off. Spellblade, it comes to mind especially as far as heroic fights go. Um, but yeah, absolutely. I think that those folks that aren't used to doing that stuff will get used to it. Um, it's just I think we just gotta kind of nudge them into doing it a little bit more is all.
Sure. Lorelei, what about you?
I agree. I know that I spent a lot of time that night running around and eating feasts and getting cake and jumping on bombs. But I mean, I don't mind giving up my DPS because it has to be done. And I know the ranged were really taking the brunt of having to do it, and even a couple of our healers were getting frustrated because they couldn't heal because they were so busy doing it. And we have to spread the jobs out. It can't just be the ranges, the range job to take everything that's out there. We had at one time 3 cakes sitting right next to the boss, and nobody was getting them. And that's something that DPS can just, take a step, get a cake, and it's out of the way, and then the bots don't get it and recharge or whatever they do.
Yeah, and Dark and I were also running out to try to grab them. That's
Yeah,
you
yeah, I
know,
did.
it's okay to do that, but it's a little dicey because things can
Yeah, the
go really wrong
tanks
when we
shouldn't
do
have to
that.
do that.
Yeah, but we're ready to in a pinch, and we know how to do it without taking too much of a chance. But if it's at all avoidable, that's probably better.
Well, that's where I was kind of going with that. That's why I asked the question, because I know there are people that raid with us that, they don't step out to do those. They figure somebody else is going to do it, and they're just going to keep concentrating on their DPS, which is why I brought it up, because I'm like, now that we're getting into mythics, and I think we did this the last time too. We get
Hmm.
so comfortable with normal. There's always the same people picking up the fire extinguishers or the flamethrowers. That's what they were in that one. It
Oh
was
yeah.
always the same people, and so they always knew how to do it. But as you progressed, you know, other things changed, and boy, those people that are doing those extras are, and I almost hate saying it, but they're the more advanced players because they feel comfortable being able to go out and do something and come right back and get on their DPS and still be, some of the higher DPS people.
That's true, and I think sometimes people with really high DPS are sometimes seen as not doing the mechanics. Where sometimes you're right; it's the people who are really good at cranking out the DPS also are able to throw other things into their rotation and throw in those extras, and that's something that's actually always bothered me with Warcraft is that you don't really want to be calling people out per se in a raid, but you do want to be able to know, well, is that person ever eating any cakes, for example? And it'd be nice to be able to encourage them to do so. But I know I'm too busy to figure out who's eating how many of which cakes when. So if we're as a group learning, it'd be great to find a way to encourage people to increase their capacity, increase our group effort without kind of pointing to the wrong people about that.
Yeah, well, I think that's where the podcast comes in. you know,
There you go.
we can talk about it here, and hopefully they're listening to our podcast and they go, "Oh, okay, I understand why they want us to get cake because it can't just be the same people all the time." So,
Yeah,
especially like if one of them doesn't show up that night.
Yeah,
right.
that's true.
Yeah, and even as a range DPS in that Trilliax fight, there are plenty of times where, although I've got a pretty long range, like if I get that debuff, and I forget what it's called. It's the one where, you get the pulsing circle around you and you have to stand next to the scrubbers so that they clean up fast. And, I found myself on all the way on the opposite side of the room from the rest of the raid, so far away that I wasn't even in healing range, and we had to, make an adjustment for that where a healer would kind of move in that direction a bit so the healer would be in range of people that might be stuck on the other side of the rooms with scrubbers. And it's frustrating when you're a DPS and your job is to damage things and you can't. You've got to stand there and not do something that you want to do. You have to go over and do this mechanic that's stopping you from doing what is essentially your job. And but the mechanics is also your job. So you just sort of have to stand there and suck it up and go, well, I'll be back in range in a minute. And when I do, I'm going to have a bunch of stuff off cooldown. So I'm going to really hit it hard, you know. But, you just got to stand there and watch the scrubbers clean up the floor and try and use some self heals if you've got them and do your part.
Well, yeah, and I agree. I know as a ranged myself, I find, a lot of the times I would love to just be able to stay on the boss and focus on it and do as much damage as I can and watch my rotation really close. But, when the ads come in as range, that's one of our primary jobs is to start hitting those ads and start DPSing those down. You know, it's it's a delicate balance. Let's put it that way. And I think more people need to learn how to do that balance. And by doing that, I think we'll advance even further. Now, I'm impressed, guys. I really am. I didn't ask. I didn't want to know. I wanted to bring it to the podcast on how far you guys got. That was impressive, though. So my hat's off to everybody, especially on the panel, because I consider each one of you part of the raid lead team. To the point where you can come back with positive feedback about what we're doing and also talk about what we're not doing and put it in a positive spin, because I'm sure there's other raid groups that wiping 6-7 times on Trilliax in one night isn't acceptable, and it's like you guys see it, you make small minor corrections, we talk about it here, we make sure it gets out to our listeners. Hopefully our raid members are listeners, and I know there's quite a few. I haven't asked everybody, but I know there's quite a few. So hopefully they hear this and they see, the logic behind it.
Yeah,
So,
I will say that I did see some people that normally aren't taking on the role of doing some of the mechanics, picking up that mantle a little bit. So that was good to see. I did see a couple of people who don't normally do that, really taking it upon themselves to make an effort to go out and get those cakes. So that was good to see.
well, yeah, and that's what I was talking about before, as part of it, is that we as a raid group seem to be able to do that. I mean, when we're doing normals, we get through it, we're doing great, we're coasting, and we get into the next, heroic version. And there are certain people that were coasting in normal, and then they go, okay, well, I'll step up and do that. I saw that in the last raids we did, and even in the last expansion. So I think that's what makes us a good raid group. I really do, is that we have that diversity between all of us that we can get that done.
Yep. And once people start seeing the heroic versions of the fight and realizing that they've got to, like, with one of the problems we had with the beam was people standing too close to the boss, and it's just like, just move back to the edge of his hitbox and you won't take that damage, because you don't realize that beam actually has almost a little hitbox of its own.
Yeah, true. I
And
took a
yeah,
tick from that once.
I learned early on in when I was raiding in my guild that you cannot stand right there next to that boss and think you can just sort of stand there while he turns around, because you're going to get hit with it bad. But I think when people see the fight and they go through it a couple of times, they're going to realize that they've got to do a little bit more than just stand there, or just stand off in the back, whichever, and they'll get it. I mean, we always do.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have much of a problem with progression. I've never seen that. So, all right, I got a fan asked question, and we've covered this one before, but I think he wanted to wait even longer. So, Joe Bowie, are you still playing Heroes of the Storm?
No, I haven't. In fact, I uninstalled it. It kept updating. And I'm like, I'm not even playing this, and it's downloading an update while I'm playing WoW, and it's using my bandwidth, and I'm finding that annoying. So I'm gonna go and uninstall it. It's not a bad game. It's just not for me. It was okay. I kind of, sort of enjoyed it while I played it to get a cool mount, but it's just not really for me. WoW is really more my thing, and other games. I don't think I'm really into the whole kind of top-down real-time strategy style. I like real-time strategy games like StarCraft and stuff like that. But I don't know. I guess what do they call those? MOBAs is
Yeah.
what that is. And I guess I'm just not very much into MOBAs because I haven't found one that I enjoy playing.
Lorelei?
I still have it installed, but I did not even get the mount. It wasn't something that I really needed to have. I got the one mount that I wanted from the game in the beginning.
It
I don't
wasn't a
have
pet.
time right now when I'm working. I have a hard enough time now trying to get invasions in and world quests. And
And keeping up
I
with your
don't
pets.
even have time to play Diablo, and I really enjoy that one too.
All right, an epistle.
Worgen is good enough to play it for me now and again.
So he plays your account.
Yeah, I'll let him use account for that, and so if anything cool comes up, I'll get the benefit without the work.
You
Well,
play vicariously.
No, that would assume I'm looking over the shoulder. I'm not even doing that. I'm out of the room.
There you go.
well, to be honest, I did the same thing as Joe Bowie did. I uninstalled it. It was the same exact thing that happened to me. I was like, ah, it's updating. I don't even play it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was like, why am I using my bandwidth for that? I don't even play this game.
I did get the mount. I do like the mount. But I guess I misunderstood one of you when you said, "Oh yeah, it flies. You just got to go to the old area." So I used my mage. I came back to Stormwind to go to the auction house and got on that mount. And I was like, "All right." And I got to the down below and I jumped off the edge and went right to the bottom. It's like,
Ah,
"Oh, it doesn't fly."
did you jump off the tower?
I did jump off
I
the
don't do
tower.
that. I do that all the time in my flying mounts. Usually my motorcycle pops up on my random mount thing and I just head right off on my motorcycle to, to kill myself.
Well, my
You,
hotkey
you just
is
say
the
mage, right?
yeah.
Feather fall?
Slow
Well,
fall. Yeah.
it's not that far of a fall. I mean,
Well,
it's just
you know what I think it was is we had talked about the 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 saber cat that you get completing uh completing the raid, that came up there, the
oh,
arcane one. That one flies.
maybe
And
that's the one you're talking. I just assumed you were talking about that one.
yeah, that one flies, and I think it was actually Pistol that told us about that it flies, that it sprouts wings and it flies. But I was really disappointed that the fell saber, the flaming cat one, does not fly when I found out that it doesn't
Yeah.
fly. Only I found out a much safer way, which was I was just on the ground in one of those zones, and I hit the space bar, and all it did was roar, and I was like, oh, it doesn't fly.
Well, no, I mean, if you're gonna test something, you just jump. Nope,
Yep.
doesn't work.
Still falling.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Here's the storm. It's an okay game. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy the fact that they have all the Blizzard characters coming together. That's a unique feature. Um, I'm not a big, and I don't know if you'd call it. Yeah, I don't think it's an actual RTS because that's more group play. This is just you being a hero. So yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
I don't
Oh,
like the camera point of view. That's the problem I have with Diablo. You're just stuck with that one viewpoint, and I don't like it, the angle, and I just no, I don't want to play it like that.
yeah, I agree with you there. Now that you mentioned it, I think that's why I never. I mean, I liked the first Diablo because it was new, it was exciting, it was something. I really liked the storyline
Hmm.
of the first Diablo. Wiping out the town, and you got to go down and find. Anyway, um, but I agree with you. I think that's probably why I don't play Diablo. Where with WoW, I mean, there's times I think it would be really cool to see WoW in the virtual reality,
Oh
just
yeah.
to see how that would. I mean, I'm sure you've experienced it, Joe Bowie.
No, I haven't. I
Uh,
haven't. There's not a straightforward way to do it, where you can see it in VR where it looks 3D to you. It can be done, but it requires modifying DLLs in the game, and
oh
uh,
wow.
and that can get you banned.
Yeah, yeah.
So I looked into it because I was like, oh, I really want to just ride the tram or fly around Stormwind or something, and just maybe just walk around or something, look at the environment, not even really play it, just look at it, like I'm standing there. because that's kind of how VR is, and it's just there's no clean way to do it without risking my account, which I'm not willing to do. One thing interesting about that I read an article a while back, that was, some some poll that some website did that was, like what's the most popular games in each of the 50 states. And oddly enough, there was two games that came up as the most popular in every single state, and it was Heroes of the Storm and World of Warcraft. And like some states went World of Warcraft, some states went Heroes of the Storm. And I don't know why, of course, but yeah. So that I thought it was kind of interesting that those are like the two most popular, most played games in the United States, I guess, at least according to that article I read.
Well, if you look at the Warcraft games that came out, Warcraft, Humans versus Orcs, and then it stepped up to 2 and 3. As it progressed, you started getting more of the heroes from World of Warcraft, that were coming in that you could play. You could play Arthas, and you could play, um, you know, uh, what's the big female mage? Jaina. You could play Jaina Proudmoore, and you could play them and have all your minions behind you. So it progressed. Blizzard progressed along that route. So it doesn't surprise me they came out with something like this. All right, on to 7.2. Have you gotten your flying yet? And if not, how close are you? Joe Bowie?
I have not gotten my flying yet, and I am getting pretty close. I have another, let's see here, 2,500, a little under 2,500 rep left to go, to before I get flying. So maybe a few days, couple of days, a few days. I don't know. I guess it depends a little bit on my luck with my champion missions.
Okay. Um, quick question for you, Joe Bowie. Has it been mathematically feasible yet for someone to have gotten flying?
Yeah, I mean there are people that have flying. I've seen them, and it can be done. And if RNG was on your side, then it can even have been done without grinding, um, or without like specifically grinding. Like doing something dull and boring over and over again until you achieve the thing you want. So yeah, it's possible to have gotten it by now. I just didn't have good enough luck in some areas in order to get it. Plus, humans getting the rep bonus that helps quite a bit as well. And the Dark Moon Fair was up, so those that went and got the Dark Moon Fair rep bonus, they got a little bit of an advantage there too. Um, so yeah, it's totally feasible that there are people flying around right now, and like I said, I've seen them.
Yeah, now see, I haven't seen anybody flying around yet, but I haven't been playing a lot. That's and the reason I asked you, Joe Bowie, is because um, this this last weekend, the reason I missed Saturday is because I had a special event that I was hosting on my YouTube channel where we were doing a 24-hour live streaming game giveaway, and I was on my time, which is East Coast time, like 5 in the morning, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna jump over to WoW really quick and take care of a couple of things, and guess who's on?
Yeah,
Joe Bowie's on.
I suffer from insomnia sometimes, and so I'm occasionally on at really odd hours.
Oh, I
Some
figured you were grinding for rep.
I not really. No, I just couldn't sleep. I was actually out collecting artifact power because I was getting close to another rank, and I figured, why not? I'm not going to sleep yet anyway.
Okay. So Lorelai, same question. Have you gotten your flying yet? And if not, how close are you?
No, I'm probably not as close as I should be. I'm only 635 into honored, so I've got a ways to go, but I'll be able to work on it more this week. Uh, I last time we did the flying, I busted myself getting all of that rep and everything I needed just to have flying not happen. And I said this time I wasn't going to stress out, getting it right away. I'll get it when I get it. I just, because I'm right now, I'm just kind of done with having to go through all this to get flying. And I'm really glad they took the invasions out of the achievement. That helps a lot. Um, I don't know. I'm kind of done with having to grind to get it. I think there, and this time it's even longer than the Draenor time.
So yeah, I think we touched on this before, but last expansion they made everybody do it, and then they made to do this, and they still didn't give you flying, and so they went in with a plan this time, and I think they overthought it,
Yeah.
you know. So yeah, we'll see. Abyssal, how about you?
I'm about a third of the way through Honored, and I'm getting a little more disillusioned with the whole process. Having been away for several days during the beginning meant that I really wasn't, that I was falling behind a little bit. But I'd kind of hoped that there might be some way to speed it up a little. And the only ways I found, I know Jabui and I were out trying some stuff today, and it would have just been incredibly tedious, and there's no way I wanted to try that. So I'm just gonna patiently wait and do the dailies as they come up, and I would have preferred they just put it on a timer though when it comes down to that, and say, you get flying in 2 weeks, rather than all
Yeah,
this sort of do a thing here and there and eventually there's flying.
yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Yeah, I'm kind of in between Epistle and Lorelei. I'm just if I get the rep, I get the rep. I'm not actually out seeking it. I don't even know where I'm at on it. And I think I'll probably leave it that way until my wife gets flying, and then I'll get super jealous and have to go out. You can hear her giggling in the
I
background.
hear that.
Yeah.
Then I'll get super jealous and I'll have to go out and work on it, but I'll make her help me. Shh.
Yeah, I don't mind so much the method, the way I'm doing it. It doesn't feel that bad to me the way I'm doing. But again, I'm avoiding those grindy methods. Which for our listeners out there, if you're interested in that, you can go around and collect treasure chests in the Broken Shore that spawn around on there. I think you can. I think Blizzard changed it so you can only loot them once per day. Like the individual chests that spawn. But each one of those will drop a little bit of Legion resources, and you can also, because the one of the buildings is up, you can spawn these bosses that'll drop a few Legion resources. Um, and if you really want to, I mean, you can spend 100 of those to get 150 rep of those Legion resources, but you only get, like, I would say on average about 3 per treasure chest or per boss thing that you spawn. So I mean, it's a long, long haul to do it that way. I mean, if you're into that, by all means, but I just am not into that myself.
Okay. Well, that brings up a really good question. Is there any way or specific way to grind out reputation, or if somebody wants to?
That's pretty much it, is to do those. But personally, I think the way I'm doing it is I'm just going and I'm doing the world quests that pop up in the Broken Shore. Each one of those will grant 75 rep, plus, or plus whatever reputation bonuses you might have, either Darkmoon Fair or human rep bonuses. Uh, and then each one of those will also grant you 25 Legion, Army of the Legion resources, the resources you use to build the buildings. And if you turn in 100 of those resources, so every 4 quests that you do, you can get a bonus 150 reputation from turning that in. I'm doing that. And then the only other way that I know of is your Champion Hall missions, which there are occasionally missions that come up that will grant Army of the Legion Fall reputation at 250 a pop. And the 900 level, or the close to 900 level variants of those missions will give you 2 of those tokens. And then if you have a 200% bonus, you'll also get a Broken Shores reputation randomized token. And I actually had one of those turn up as Armies of the Legion Fall. So on that particular mission, I got 3 tokens. So that was like 750 rep right there, which was really, really nice to get. But it's random as to whether or not those missions come up. The world boss gives 500 rep. That's another thing you can do. and a chance at 900 gear to get some rep.
Now,
And
is that once? I'm sorry. Is that once a week? That boss too?
no. I think the world boss in the Broken Shore is tied to whether or not the Neither Disruptor building is up. The Neither Disruptor building, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is what causes a world boss to spawn in the Broken Shore. So you can go kill that.
Has anybody done the world boss down there yet, Lorelei?
No, I haven't, not yet.
How about you, Joe Bowie? Have you done the world boss yet?
I have. I killed the world boss seconds after I logged in one morning. I saw that he was up, and I was like, "Oh, there's a world boss down there. I'll go kill it." And I got some gold and 500 rep, which I was still happy about. But I didn't have my Dark Moon Fair reputation bonus on when I went to kill the world boss because I didn't really know that it was going to give me rep. And then it gave me 500 rep, and I was like, "Don't! That could have been 550 rep." But oh well.
So you mentioned that collecting the war supplies that you do 4 quests and you get 100. I didn't find that exactly true because I did all the quests there and I had like 92. Was there a reason for that? Yeah, I didn't. It wasn't like I got like went to one and did it and I got like 23 versus 25.
Well, that's odd because like even in the description for the rewards, it's like whatever reward, whether it's artifact power, an item, or some order resources, there's always another one at the bottom that says 25 Legion war supplies, Legion Fall war supplies, on the bottom of each of those. And I'm not talking about the, there's these like kind of skull-like shapes that show up on the map there.
Yeah,
And
the green alien heads.
yeah, the alien head-looking things. Those things are just like I I guess we could call them mini bosses. They're not quite
Yeah.
world bosses. Um, those mini bosses drop Legion Fall the Legion Fall war supplies as well, but they only drop like between 3 and 4 usually, is what I've noticed. So maybe you did a bunch of those and like 3 of the regular quests.
Well, no, because I did all 4 quests. I know that, but I also had gotten some from not my garrison, but my class hall missions.
Oh
There
yeah.
was only one, but that was like I don't know, 25 or 35 of them there or something like that. And
Yeah,
I'm not remembering if I bonused on it or not.
Yeah, they're supposed to drop 25 each. And it's been consistent for me. I'm not sure what happened with you there, but
Huh.
because I know that as they come up and I see there's 25 and I go and I do them and I get 25 and then if I do 4 of them I go and turn them in, which it has been including the pet battles that show up there as well. We'll also give you the 25 Legion Fall resources and the
Oh.
75 rep.
See, maybe that's what I'm not doing. Maybe I'm only doing 3 then because I didn't do the pet battle at all.
Yeah, I've been doing those. Lorelei has kind of gotten me back into doing pet battles a little bit, and so I've been building my crew of gnarly pets and going out there to take out the bad guy pet battlers, or just the challengers. I guess they're not all bad guys, um, and trying to defeat those pets. And it can be hard sometimes. It feels very RNG sometimes too, like whether or not I crit or they crit may be the difference between whether or not I win or they win.
Yeah.
But luckily I
Okay.
have a lot of pet bandages now, so that helps.
That helps, that's for sure.
So, had you found anything different on the pet battles down there, Lorelei?
They are just a little bit harder, and as I said, I haven't spent as much time on this isle as I need to. So I think I've done one of the pet battles, and I had to play around with some teams before I found a team that could actually get one of the pet tamers down.
Okay.
So that's
So,
my
yeah.
next research is getting into the pet battles here.
Yeah, they are tough. They are really tough. Like I had to like try the same thing. I had tried like teams that I was like, oh, this should work, and then it didn't work at all. And then I was like, okay, I got to figure out something else, and eventually figured out teams that would do it. I think there's 3 pet battle spots that I've noticed out there, one by each of the flight points. Um, there's one Yeah, just not very far from each of the flight points is one of the pet battles that'll come up each day.
Okay. So, have either one of you found out what the big giant ship that shows up on the map is for? Do you go there? Is there a quest there?
The Centenax.
Oh, is that what it's called?
Yeah, I think I've
Centenax.
I keep thinking that that's where we go during invasions, but I'm not positive about that. But I've got a couple of these little gems that say that you can tell the Sentinex to summon the portals. And maybe right now it's just there to let us get demons.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of the Centenax. The Centenax is essentially a way to get Neither shards, uh, which is a currency that can be used to buy some items, like item upgrade tokens. Well, not really item upgrade tokens. They're like item tokens. They're kind of like chests, that you might get from a champion mission or something. Uh, and That's really pretty much what they're for. You don't get any Legion Fall war supplies or anything like that. They won't help you get flying faster directly, um, but they will give you. It's a way to get lots of Neither shards, and those crystals. Yeah, they open portals there. I have too many of those crystals in my bags at this point. So sometimes I go there and I just open a bunch of portals and kill stuff to get Neither shards. Because right now I'm trying to gather up Neither shards for things. Because I do find those pretty useful for my tune. But that's basically all that is. It's just you go to that wherever it's at. The ship is there, and there might be other players opening portals, and if there's mobs around, demons that you can start attacking. Sometimes they turn gray because there's like some weird tagging stuff with some of the demons that I guess I was working on right now, changing the rules for that. But you just kill a bunch of demons with the other mob of people out there, and then loot them and get some Neither shards, and you can spawn more portals if you have crystals. You can empower those portals if you have special crystals to do that, which makes the demons that come out of them tougher. And then there are these special crystals that you can get that will cause like a mini boss to spawn. And then once the mini boss is killed, then the Centenax goes on cooldown for a little bit, where you can't spawn any more portals. And apparently people get upset when that happens because they're out there farming Neither shards, and then they can't open more portals, and they're like, "Oh, we've got to wait for 3 minutes for it to recharge." Uh, so, and that's pretty much all it is. Is just it's a way of gaining lots of Neither shards.
All right. Well, 7.2 seems to be a very popular topic right now, and we are closing up on our time. So we're going to cue the music and go to Lorelei's Pet Battle Minute.
Hi, it's Lorelei in your Pet Battle Minute. It might be a little bit longer. I'm going to do a real quick run through of the Wailing Caverns. Again, I went back and did some more research on it. And you really want to have a bunch of mech pets and dragons, and then you won't have any problem getting through. It's a 6-stage fight. Stage 1 is common trash, and a good team is a mechanical, flying, and a magic pet. Stage 2 is your first boss, the Son of Scum, and you need a mech pet with a reflective shield and ion cannon and some dragons as your cleanup pets, and you'll be able to get through that one. He's not very hard at all. Stage 3 is uncommon trash, and you need some decoy pets. So get some mechanical pets with decoy, and you won't have a problem with those. Stage 4 is the boss Hiss, and you need a mechanical pet with ion cannon as well. And the mechanical Yeti is a good one to take him out. And then a couple of dragons at the end with shields, or other pets with shields like the Anubisi idol will take out the background pets. Stage 5 is rare trash and a mechanical dragonling
User
pet
joined your channel.
and an emerald proto-whelp are good for that fight. And then your backline pets can take out Hiss's backline pets. And stage 6 is the final boss, the ever-living Spore. Toothy the crocodile is a good pet to take him out. He's an aquatic pet, and his water jet will take him out very quickly. And then finish up with some more dragons, and you'll be good to go. And just make sure that you don't hearth out when you finish. Do a leave instant group so that you can go back quest giver and turn your quest in and hopefully get some new pets out of it.
Awesome. It actually sounds like it's pretty fun. How long did it take you to do it? I mean, is it quite a complicated series?
I've done it on the normal challenge where I could heal, and I didn't have the right pet. I didn't have my Toothy leveled up at the time, so I was using the Pandarian Water Spirit. And it took me a couple of times with the last boss because I didn't have enough pets up, or I didn't have enough pets in my rotation to get him down. So he was the only one that gave me a hard time. The other ones went very quickly. But just pull up if you have some add-ons, and I've talked about those in the past, you can very easily look up decoy, and it will pull up all your mech pets with decoy, and just set up some teams for your trash, and you won't be able to have a problem with it. The challenge, I've heard, is not that hard once you get those teams in place.
Okay. Awesome. All right, next up is Getting Deeps with Joe Bowie.
In my opinion, there are two things that are going to make the biggest difference in your DPS performance in raid situations. The first is familiarity with your class and spec, and the second is raid awareness. Getting familiar with your class and spec is essential for getting good DPS out of it. Knowing which abilities to use and when is essential, but as important is how comfortable you are with executing those abilities. Putting your spells and abilities on an action bar and assigning keyboard or mouse commands to them will help you develop muscle memory for fast reaction times with your abilities. You can even queue up another ability to go off right after the current one is completed by hitting the button for that ability just prior to the first one finishing its cast. Raid awareness is something that develops over time, but it is something that one can work on improving. If you're raiding, get familiar with the fights that you're going to be encountering. Try them out in LFR and get used to what to look for. When you're in the actual raid situation, pay attention to the timings, what things look like, and when those things are going to happen. Knowing the what, when, and where of a fight is key to improving your DPS. With better raid awareness, you will know what is going to happen next, what spell or ability is going to be most useful for you, and where to put your character at any given time to ensure that you're doing the mechanics well and getting the most DPS you can.
Epistle, Come At Me, a tanking minute.
This week's Come At Me, a tanking minute, is all about active mitigation. I think I had been tanking for maybe 2 or 3 years before somebody used that phrase, active mitigation, and I had no clue what they were talking about. I was just mashing my keys and doing all the things you're supposed to do, taunting and trying to AoE tank and single target tank, and I had no idea what they meant by active mitigation. Well, the truth is I'd been doing it, and I just didn't realize that I had. The central problem for tanks, of course, is to survive. You don't want to be squished like the proverbial bug. So how do tanks survive? Obviously, heals are pretty handy. Some tanks have self-heals, and of course, the healers and raids are what can keep your health up. However, some of those bosses dish out so much damage. Most squishy clothies, for example, would know that 1 or 2 shots from a boss and they would be toast. So it's not just the heals, it's that you cut down on the amount of damage coming in, and there's some ways to do that. Armor, of course, cuts down a certain percentage. Tanks also have cooldowns. You probably hear people talking about that. Time to use your cooldowns, meaning big damage coming in. I know my Pally tank, for example, has a couple, 2 or 3 that I kind of alternate with. Some of them will actually cut out magic damage, some will count out physical damage, and it's kind of a get out of jail free pass, and those are very useful. But active mitigation, that's an interesting thing that allows you to take tanking and take it up to the next level from just everyday tanking to making sure that you can actually reduce even more incoming damage and make you a tank that's even easier to sort of survive difficult situations. So What active mitigation is it's a form of attack that you do, which has a secondary benefit for you. In other words, shields yourself. So, for example, on my pally, I have something called Shield of the Righteous. It's actually my biggest attack, does the most damage, so I'm motivated to use it all the time. But currently, the way it's set up with all the different talents and bonuses from gear that I've got, if I hit a mob with the Shield of the Righteous, it will reduce the damage coming to me by 42%. That's over and above everything else. That's a lot of damage to reduce. So the trick though with active mitigation is you want to use that ability, but space it out kind of carefully. So those sorts of active mitigations often have something like a number of charges. In the case of Shield of the Righteous, it's 3. So what you don't want to do is, say, hit your 3 big damage spells all in a row or abilities all in a row, because suddenly then you won't have that 42% for 5 seconds. In actual fact, you'll have 42% for bang, 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 4.5 seconds, and however long the global cooldown is for you hitting it the other 2 times. So it's a little bit of a habit to find out what's that active mitigation you have as a tank, and then figure out what that key is, like Joe Boy was talking about in terms of maybe hotkeying things, so that you can know by muscle memory where it is, but then you space them out bit by bit. So that's really 4.5 times 3, that's almost 15 seconds of active mitigation where I take 42% less damage. So figure out what talent or ability you have as a tank that does that active mitigation, and figure out how to space it out. And you may actually have more than one. The way my Avenger Shield is working right now, when I use it, it will absorb 50% of the damage it does, which is kind of a nice little bonus, but not nearly as much as the other. So try to figure out what your major are, what your secondary is. There's been a couple times my health has gone down, but being able to use that active mitigation, as opposed to those big cooldowns, has actually saved me from being squished like a bug, and the raid wiping as a result. And that's active mitigation for Come At Me a Tanking Minute.
All right, fantastic. Well, guys, I think we've approached our end of time limit, so thanks everybody for coming, and we'll see you next week.
Have a good week.
Take care.
See you, folks. Thank you. Enjoy flying if you get it.
If you like this podcast, throw us a like and subscribe to our channel. And please, leave comments or questions below. Maybe we'll answer them on the air next podcast. We are hosted on Podomatic.com. Our website is lionspridetavern.podomatic.com. Our podcast also airs on iTunes for Apple users, Google Play for Androids, and YouTube. Just search World of Warcraft Lions Pride Tavern podcast. See you next week, and thanks for listening.